This one configuration checkbox just cost a company I consulted with $18,000 in unexpected AWS data transfer charges last quarter, and the worst part is they had no idea it was even happening until I showed them their bill breakdown.
Okay, you have my attention. What checkbox are we talking about?
Cross-zone load balancing in AWS Elastic Load Balancing. It's one of those features that sounds purely beneficial. Better traffic distribution, more even load across your instances, but there's a hidden cost trap that catches almost everyone.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Network Ninja Cloudcast. I'm so glad you're here because this sounds like something I definitely need to understand before I accidentally blow my AWS budget.
Exactly why we're covering it today. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly when to enable cross-zone load balancing, when to disable it, and how to calculate whether it's worth the cost for your specific architecture.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly is cross-zone load balancing doing under the hood?
Picture a shopping mall with two entrances, one on the north side and one on the south side. Without cross-zone load balancing, each entrance only directs shoppers to stores on its side of the mall. The north entrance sends people to north stores, south entrance to south stores.
That seems inefficient. What if all the popular stores are on the north side?
Exactly the problem. In AWS terms, each availability zone is like one side of the mall. Your application load balancer has nodes in each aws, and without cross-zone enabled, each node only sends traffic to targets registered in its own aws. So if you have 10 instances in aws East 1A and 2 instances in aws East 1B, the 2 instances in 1B get hammered with 50% of all traffic.
Oh, that's terrible for load distribution. So cross-zone fixes this by letting traffic flow across the zones?
Precisely. With cross-zone enabled, that ALB node in aws East 1B can send traffic to any of your 12 instances across both zones. Traffic gets distributed based on the actual number of healthy targets, not which zone they happen to be in.
That sounds like it should always be on then. Where's the cost trap you mentioned?
Here's what AWS doesn't make obvious in the console. When traffic crosses from one availability zone to another, AWS charges you inter-aws data transfer fees. In most US and EU regions, that's 1 cent per gigabyte in each direction, so 2 cents per gigabyte round trip. Though I should mention, rates can vary by region, so always check the current AWS pricing page for your specific region.
Wait, so every request that goes cross-zone costs money?
Every byte of data. And here's the critical detail that trips people up. Application load balancers have cross-zone load balancing enabled by default, and there's no additional charge for the cross-zone traffic itself. This has been the case since ALB launched back in 2016. It was designed this way from the start. But network load balancers and gateway load balancers charge you for cross-zone data transfer when you enable it.
Hold on, let me make sure I understand this. ALB cross-zone is free, but NLB cross-zone costs money?
You've got it. And here's another important distinction. NLB has cross-zone enabled by default, so you're paying for it unless you explicitly turn it off. Gateway load balancer, on the other hand, has cross-zone disabled by default. So the defaults are different across all three load balancer types, which matters a lot for understanding unexpected costs.
That's confusing but really important to know. So ALB is on and free, NLB is on but costs money, and GWLB is off by default?
Exactly right. And here's where it gets even more nuanced. Even with ALB, your back-end instances still generate inter-aws charges when they communicate with other services. The ALB to target traffic is free, but if your target then calls a database in another aws, that's charged.
So the load balancer traffic is free, but everything downstream still costs money. How do I calculate if this matters for my setup?
Let's do real math. Say you're processing 1 terabyte of traffic per month through an NLB with cross-zone enabled. Now, the actual percentage of traffic that crosses zones depends on a few factors, like where your clients connect and how your targets are distributed. But for a simplified example, if we assume roughly even distribution and you have targets in 2 aws, approximately 50% of traffic might cross zones. That's 500 gigabytes at 1 cent per gig, so $5 in one direction. Round trip makes it $10. Doesn't sound bad, right?
$10 seems totally reasonable for better distribution.
Now scale that to a high-traffic application doing 100 terabytes monthly. You're looking at $1,000 just in cross-zone data transfer. I've seen video streaming services hit $10,000 monthly purely from this one setting.
Okay, that's significant. What's the alternative if I want good distribution without the cost?
This is where architecture matters more than settings. First option, ensure you have equal capacity in each aws. If you have the same number of similarly sized instances in each zone, disabling cross-zone still gives you even distribution because each zone handles its proportional share.
But what if I'm using auto-scaling and instance counts fluctuate?
Great question. Configure your auto-scaling group with the AZ-rebalance process enabled and set your desired capacity as a multiple of your aws count. If you're in 3 awses, use desired counts of 3, 6, 9, 12. This keeps instances balanced across zones automatically.
That's clever. What about the second option?
Zone affinity in your application design. If your app servers in AWS East 1A primarily talk to databases and caches also in AWS East 1A, you minimize cross-AWS backend traffic regardless of load balancer settings. AWS calls this zonal architecture, and it's becoming a best practice for cost optimization.
Let me see if I can summarize the common mistakes here. First mistake would be enabling cross-zone on NLB without calculating the data transfer costs? Or I guess with NLB, not realizing it's already enabled by default?
Exactly. And the second mistake is the opposite, disabling cross-zone to save money but having unbalanced instance counts across zones. You save on data transfer but your instances in the smaller zone get overwhelmed, leading to higher latency or failures.
So the real answer isn't just on or off. It's understanding your traffic patterns and instance distribution first.
You've nailed it. Here's my decision framework. For ALB, cross-zone is free, so it's generally recommended for better distribution. However, and this is important, there are legitimate architectural reasons to disable it even though it's free. If you're designing for strict zonal isolation to limit the blast radius during an aws failure, you might want traffic to stay within its zone. AWS actually lets you configure this at the target group level for exactly this reason.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about cost. It's also about failure isolation?
Exactly. For NLB, calculate your monthly cross-zone data transfer cost, compare it against the operational complexity of maintaining perfectly balanced aws capacity, and make an informed choice. And remember, NLB has it on by default, so check your settings if you haven't explicitly configured it.
Can I actually see this in the AWS console somewhere?
Yes, but the location depends on which load balancer type you're using. For NLB and Classic Load Balancer, go to EC2, then Load Balancers, select your load balancer, and click the Attributes tab. You'll see cross-zone load balancing right there. But for ALB, it's different. Cross-zone is now configured at the target group level. So you'd go to EC2, then Target Groups, select your target group, and look in the Attributes section there. This is a common point of confusion when people can't find the setting where they expect it.
Good to know. I would have been hunting around forever looking in the wrong place for ALB.
For cost analysis, check Cost Explorer, filter by data transfer, and look for inter-aws transfer charges.
All right, let me recap what I learned. Cross-zone load balancing distributes traffic across all healthy targets regardless of which availability zone they're in. ALB has it enabled by default and doesn't charge for the cross-zone traffic, and it's been that way since ALB launched. NLB has it enabled by default but does charge for inter-aws data transfer. Gateway Load Balancer has it disabled by default and also charges when you enable it. The fix isn't always disabling it. Sometimes it's balancing your instance counts or designing for zone affinity. And even when it's free like with ALB, you might still disable it for zonal isolation purposes.
Perfect summary. My pro tip is to set up a CloudWatch billing alarm specifically for data transfer charges. It's the sneakiest cost category in AWS and catches people off guard every month.
That's really practical advice. I'm definitely checking my NLB settings after this, especially since you said it's on by default.
That's it for today's episode. If you found this helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
And share this with anyone running high-traffic applications on AWS. This could literally save them thousands of dollars.
Thanks for watching the Network Ninja Cloudcast. See you in the next one.